Once we airlifted 60 infantry into a fairly open area which we could seemingly see no enemy anywhere around. As our 10-helicopter flight left to pick up more troops, the guys we just dropped off were hit very badly by a large enemy force. We came back with reinforcements and still could see no enemy. They seemed to disappear and appear when they wished as usual. I was one of the helicopters ordered to stay with the infantry in their ambush location. A smoke machine was brought out in another helicopter. I never seen one of those before. It was big and it had big blowers on it. I don't remember what fuel it burnt, but it could put CS gas down holes too. There was no more battle and the infantry found about 3 spider holes. Some guys rolled out some hoses and stuck them down a spider hole as far as it would go. They then turned the machine on. White smoke began to pop up all over the place from about 40 spider holes in the surrounding area. No wonder from the air we couldn't see the enemy. They were underground. And from the indications of the smoke, those spider holes were all connected somehow. This all made a lot of sense to me as far as my experience on the Coochie bunker line and the NVA soldier popping up in front of me from a spider hole in another LZ. Also, one of my infantry sergeant friends said that they would confront the enemy in front of them and then all of a sudden the NVA would be behind them in an area that they had just walked over, seeing no one. Sometimes seeing no one, an American infantry platoon would become totally surrounded and take terrible casualties, and then when reinforcements would arrive, the enemy would seemingly disappear into thin air. That was the nature of the Vietnam War in our area. This was nothing new in warfare. The Native American Indians used the same tactics against the U.S. cavalry over a century ago. All of a sudden, each sagebrush was an Indian, and the NVA-VC had this tactic down to a high art form. Later, after the war, it was revealed that the NVA-VC had complex integrated tunnel systems hundreds of miles long under our whole operating areas from the Cambodian border to Saigon, but it was certainly interesting how these smoking spider holes were all connected. They could move fast and take new firing positions as needed, while the American infantry were trying to figure out what was happening around them. My whole time as a crew chief in the flights of the 116th Assault Helicopter Company consisted of LZs, PZs, and medevac missions with occasional night missions. We almost always flew in 10 helicopter assault formations lasting at least 12 hours a day. We were shot at almost every day. The rest of the time was spent doing mechanical work on my helicopter when we flew back to Coochie Base Camp. I was too tired to go to the mess hall even if it had food. I lost my appetite almost completely. A few sea rations and some water now and then were all I needed. I was getting skinny. I really didn't know how much longer that I could stay alive doing this dangerous activity, but I was not about to quit. I was not too sure why, but I had my ideas. Pride in being in bullet-to-bullet contact with the enemy I considered was doing my job in a war as a soldier, and I could not see myself leaving the other guys who were also volunteering to do this dangerous work. Seems like once you're in it, you get hooked, even if it means a good chance of death before your tour is up. The infantry has no choice but to be combat. We could quit anytime we wanted, but didn't. Maybe we were just foolish, but for me it was pride and respect for all combat soldiers in all wars, including my grandfather, father, and uncles. Why should I be different when so many soldiers fought so hard for our country and many died? I just could not quit. Also, I was probably on some sort of an adrenaline trip. I could think of nothing more exciting and exhilarating than flying in the open and shooting a machine gun while the enemy is shooting at me. And unlike the infantry, we went back to our base camp and slept in a cot in a hooch for a little while. No mosquitoes mostly, or other things biting us. We didn't have enlisted men's showers set up, and when we did, the showers didn't hold enough water, so when we got done with our mechanical work in the evening, there was no water left. I didn't take a shower for 3 months, and it didn't bother me. I didn't brush my teeth for a year neither. I never liked brushing my teeth. We had it nice, very nice, compared to the infantry fellows, although our casualty rates per combat flight crews were about the same as the infantry. We didn't have to go out on day patrols slogging around wherever with heavy loads, getting shot at by long-range snipers and stepping on booby traps or getting wiped out in finely set ambushes. Nor did we go on night ambushes, getting bit up by everything and possibly getting overwhelmed by superior enemy forces. Nor did we have to sleep in bunkers in fire support bases that could be overrun at any time the sun went down. Nor did we see the enemy bodies that we may have killed. Like I said before, we shot at smoke, trees, and bushes almost always. And when an enemy soldier was sighted and fell under a rain of bullets whose bullets hit him, it was difficult to tell. And as helicopter machine gunners, we just flew away and never looked over the dead bodies. The infantry had to see up close all the carnage on both sides of a battle. That for me would be very difficult emotionally, as I was sure it was for many of the guys in the infantry. Being in a battle and looking at the carnage during and after one are two different things, two different very emotional things. And as helicopter crews, we were spared the emotional hit. We flew around in the cool air looking down at beautiful scenery and listened to the latest rock and roll playing on Armed Forces radio in Saigon on our headphones. It was a total exhilarating joy. I turned 20 years old July 1st, 1968. It was company policy that we could stay in the base camp and not fly combat on our birthday, so I took advantage of that. It was the first day in 3 months I did not fly with the flight. I tried reading a book, but my mind was glued to what might be happening to the flight today. I was miserable. Who's getting shot down today? Who's getting shot today? It will be my fault if someone gets killed or wounded on my helicopter, blah blah. I was more tense about what was going on with the flight by my sitting safe on the ground than I was in a full-blown hot LZ. So I went over to the operations hooch and listened to the flight communications over the radios. I hope I don't get like Danny Utinsky, who became wired and wound up by so much combat that he couldn't unwind even sitting back at the base camp. And of course, who was in operations listening to the flight but Danny? He was always with the flight one way or another. That day the flight took enemy fire, but no one was killed or wounded. I will never take another day down when my helicopter was flying. It's too nerve-wracking, huh?